Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 31 of Powerbombshells. I'm Sam. That is Mel. We are two broads talking about the wrestling that we watched this week or last week, I guess. So thank you real quick.
Week.
Previously.
We can't watch future wrestling yet.
No, we can't. Would be nice. But so we talk about the wrestling we watched at the same time that you did. And real quick, I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up for the live stream last week because that was a ton of fun. We had a really, really good time, and it was really nice to see everybody in the comments just giving us things to talk about, and they were adding to the conversation, and then they were talking amongst themselves, and
it was a lot of fun.
It was. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if we can give the details yet.
No,
we're not going to give the details yet. I will just say we are planning another live stream. This one's gonna be, I think, even more fun than the last one. I don't want to give away too much, but just know that it's coming. We'll have an announcement about the details in the coming weeks, but it will be happening sooner rather than later, and I think you guys will enjoy it a lot. And so anyway, again, thank you for those of you who watched last week. And then if you are, I don't know if you've seen on our Twitter, we do have an audio version of the podcast now. So we've had the last 2 episodes. They're up on Podbean, and we tweet out the links to that. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on Twitter. That way, if you need the audio version of the show, we got you covered.
Right there.
Yep,
right on
there.
The Twitter.
Right there.
And
so
sometimes on the Instagram when we remember.
I'm trying
we're getting better.
We are. And a lot of times I will just post in the Insta
Not
story.
All your fault. I don't help with that
That's
as much as I should.
It's all right.
I admit it. I'm the weak link on this show, folks. It's true.
That's all right. I got it. And so usually in the Insta story is where, because we can post links there.
They changed everything.
Yeah, in the Insta story, I can post direct links to the podcast, whether it's the audio or the video version. So I post a lot in there so that we can do that. But I'm behind on posting pictures. I say that like every week, so that will probably happen for eternity. And also you will see that I am telephoning it again today because my microphone is trying to sabotage us by making buzzing sounds in our ears, making feedback. And so I thought I finally had it fixed, and then we were chatting before the show, and the microphone fell again, and it started buzzing, and I don't want to take any chances, and I don't want that in your ears. So
I'm starting to wonder if your microphone doesn't like me.
Maybe it has that out
microphone.
Maybe.
What's up?
Maybe it has. Maybe it's going to be like Teddy Long last night, who was going on a blocking spree on Twitter. But apparently, I heard something about somebody said that they thought he had been hacked because he blocked like a personal friend of his, and so and his account is locked now, which it was locked last night. So it sounds like maybe somebody hacked it and then locked it, and then has just been going through and blocking people. Except Jade Cargill, she tweeted earlier today, and she said that she's not blocked. Because whoever this hacker is apparently has good taste and has good sense.
Well, he knows she's that bitch. So
she is that bitch. And even the baddest bitch knows it because she turned on Diamante on Rampage. I was like, damn, that's cold. Diamante brought you here. You're just gonna turn and join Jade. I mean, she does kind of fit in. She probably fits in more with the baddies, and it's funny because Diamante is a heel as well. So I enjoy that sometimes AEW doesn't care and they will do heel versus heel or babyface versus babyface, because as long as it's a good match, that's the main thing. So and I guess at this point Jade has to fight Eric. She's trying to get to definitely trying to get to 40. Probably trying to get to 50, so she's just gonna fight good, bad, and
I'm not sure, matter. But I think
she's gonna fight everybody. They're gonna have to start bringing it. I was like, is she gonna fight Trina? I was like, is Trina next?
Well, hopefully by then we'll all know who Trina is. Yes. And just I have to insert this here because it brought me so much joy in a week full of a lot of life. And the Dynamite show from this past week, folks, on the Fight Game Media Patreon Plus there, which you can sign up for $5 a month. I go listen to the Dynamite show from the last week. Big shout out to Jeff Hawkins. You are my hero. I love you, Paul. I love you, man. It was one of my absolute favorite episodes of the Dynamite show, and that's mostly because it ended up being something of a music-related show that I don't want to spoil anything. Just go. If you enjoy AEW Dynamite and you are someone that did or didn't know who Trina was, you will, I think, and you have a sense of humor. That's definitely required for this one.
Yeah.
You definitely have to have a sense of humor.
Right.
Make sure that's the word one, but definitely go check that out.
Make sure you bring your sense of humor to that episode.
It was... sometimes the silliest things give you the best content, and that's okay. And it makes life fun.
Well, I mean, we've seen that because, as you can see from our title picture, MJF wearing a gray suit finally happened.
My favorite thing about that was how much your Twitter blew up. I popped so hard. I'm like, he's wearing a gray suit. No one in my house had an idea. I walked in my family. So funny. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I've got to be texting Sam.
Yeah, it was great because, like, it was funny because, like, we heard his music hit, and I was like, man, when is he gonna wear the gray suit? And then he comes through the tunnel, and I was like, oh my god, he's wearing the gray suit. So if you missed the episode and have missed the very many tweets about it. Back in July, I had a dream that I was talking to MJF in my dream. He was wearing a gray suit. It was, I guess, the winter time because there was snow on the ground. So we keep joking that maybe he will come back at Winter is Coming. But he told me, he just said, I'm coming back to wrestling imminently. Didn't say when, didn't say what company, nothing. And so I was jokingly tweeted, he's coming back imminently. So if he comes back, you heard it here first.
That's right. So I guess I was a little bit wrong about the future wrestling thing. So
well, that is
maybe
true.
Every once in a while we'll give you some future wrestling.
You might.
We didn't see the snow, but I was actually looking for things that could have been interpreted as snow, whether it be confetti or
that would have
worked. My nerd brain starts to branch out on. I mean, I've read too many like fantasy with prophecies, where it's like the prophecy says this, but it's actually like this is how the actual way, because you misinterpreted the prophecy, and it's just right. So I got super nerdy in my own head. I made sure and kept that inside my head because that stuff.
And so I'm hoping, I was like, I guess maybe just at Winter is Coming, maybe I'll just he'll just come out in the gray suit and it'll be snowing. I mean, that might maybe I'll
when
get that.
He wins. Maybe when he wins the title.
There we go. Maybe he'll win it at Winter is Coming.
We'll get covered in snow. Is coming though.
It is coming on my birthday.
Oh, it's on your birthday.
It is. So that would make it. So that would make it even. That would make it fun. But like, wear the gray suit and have snow. And if somehow MJF is watching this or has seen my tweets, please make it snow. So that my entire dream comes to fruition.
You're not Okada. You can make it rain, but you can't make it snow.
Somebody make it snow, damn it. But yeah, so I popped hard. I was like, oh my god, the gray suit. Nikki's like, oh my god. Like, we were freaking out because it's the gray suit.
Yes, I'm glad that I could be part of that.
Mel
it was tweeted
me and was like,
I tweeted at you.
Gray suit, and so I was fine. I went to find the tweet from where I had said it, and like so I could pop it up again. And then I found where we had talked about it on the podcast. So like I plugged the show again. I was like, we talked about it in this episode because my tweet doesn't say anything about the gray suit. It just says that he was coming back. But the episode like where we talked about it, so I put it in the episode there. So it's the gray suit, not proclamation, the vision, I guess, that I saw.
I like it.
That I foretold finally came true. I mean, it was a few weeks after he came back, but he still wore it. And so now I just need the snow.
Yep.
Just need it to happen.
Stay tuned. So,
yes.
I guess I guess I lied at the beginning. Maybe some future wrestling on occasion.
Sometimes we'll find out. I guess I'll just start sharing them on here, because there was one that happened. It was not it was wrestling related, but it was I didn't share it on Twitter. I told my sister about it, and I wish I had told the person I dreamed about, somebody that used to be my editor at a different website. She was in the dream, and I wish I had told her like when it happened, because I dreamed that Adam Page's wife was pregnant, and then we found out she was pregnant like 6 or 7 months after I dreamed that. So I was like, I should have put it. I was like, I should have at least told her about it. But I told my sister, and Nikki was like, can confirm. And so I was telling the group text about it. And so they were sending me premonition tweets from Matt Hardy. They were like, you had a premonition. So if I have any more of those, I will discuss them on here, or I'll put them on Twitter. That way, if they come true, there's documentation of it.
Man, that you definitely have to do that. I mean, if you're going to be right like that many times,
right? Yeah, yeah.
In my face here.
That's
it, definitely.
So if I dream anything else, I guess it'll at least be podcast chatter.
Yeah, exactly. And what's nice about it too is that he did come back, which is a big deal.
I was like, is 2 months imminent? Does that count? Is that it? What is it? What's the time frame for imminent? Is 2 months close enough?
I mean, when you think about the length of the like the distance or the amount of time the Earth has existed, that's pretty much imminent.
That's true.
That's like
when you put it in perspective,
you're like, what, the Earth is like 4 or 5 billion years old. I mean, so yeah, that's pretty.
That's true. I'll take it.
For the universe, that's really imminent. That was like, oh, that didn't even register.
Yeah, that is very imminent. Yeah, because I dreamed it. I think I tweeted it.
I can make things work.
There we go. Yeah, because I think I tweeted it like July 10th or 11th, and because it was literally like the day, or it was like right after I dreamed it, and then he showed up September the 4th. So.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. Almost 2 months to the day that I dreamed it. Like by a week. He missed it by a week.
Well, I mean,
so he
can't just succumb. Like he can't. He's too smart.
He is too smart.
He's like, I'm not just gonna give that away to her.
Right? He's like, I'm close enough.
You get no snow.
Yeah. He's like, you don't get snow. You'll get the gray suit 3 weeks later. He's like, you'll get it imminently after I come back. You can have the gray suit.
So do you think that he will imminently cash that poker chip in, or do you think he's going to hang on to it for a little while?
I think he's going to hang on to it for a little while.
I think he should.
I think he should too. I think because they've never done it with the champion, where they typically cash it in quickly and usually don't win. So I think it would be smart. And since poor Moxley, who's never going to get to go on vacation now.
I think so. He seemed like he had kind of into that. James actually called us smart people, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Because we had said something because we had our discussion last week about Bryan Danielson versus Moxley and who we thought would win and why. And he thought that our arguments for Danielson potentially having the thing were good, but and thus called us very smart because he hadn't thought. I
appreciate that.
So it was very nice. Thank you.
It was very nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think that they've made the point now. Also, Moxley is scheduled to defend his GCW title
thing
next month on the 1-year anniversary of him winning it. But the stipulation is
loser leaves town.
Is Nick Gage retires, or he gets the title back. And obviously, when the match was made, Mox was not supposed to have the AEW World Championship.
Well, no one knew that Phil was going to melt down.
Right. So, card definitely subject to change. And also belt subject to change as well. So now, they're like, and because somebody was saying, I was like, does it really matter? Like, would AEW not want him losing while he has, because the GCW title has nothing to do with AEW, so I don't know. So is it just for the way it looks?
The conversation really is about, and I mean, this is as just from an observer perspective, from what they discussed, is that the whole point is, can you let your ace, can you let your top guy job to some dude in a garbage?
Well, Nick Gage is
what would be
first of all, Nick Gage is not some dude. He's like, to them, but he's GCW's Mox. Like, he's their ace. So it's not like he's in the GCW universe. He's not losing to some scrub or some jobber. He's losing to their top guy. Like,
the credit of Brian Alvarez, I think that was like the point that he was trying to make.
Yeah, so I don't think that is a fair
Tony
thing.
might have to give him this one.
Yeah, and so if Jon Moxley loses to Nick Gage, like, it's not going to hurt Jon Moxley.
Well, there's
I don't.
I mean, maybe that people put too much. We as wrestling fans still think that like the whole wide world is watching every wrestling, and it's not like that at all. I mean, I would even go so far as now AEW fans are smarter than the average bear, as it were. You know, they know a lot more wrestling. We do watch New Japan. We do watch GCW.
They talk about it like they acknowledge it on TV,
right? But the fact is that the GCW crowd, like people that even would care, I mean, just to be honest, the number of people that would give a crap about that is pretty small compared to wrestling as a giant business. And I think that, I think they're overestimating like the impact that it would have. I don't think most people would even, like most wrestling fans would even know Jon Moxley.
Right, and it's not like it's not like they call Jon Moxley
right now that don't even know he's the champion.
That's what I was going to say. Like, they don't talk about. I mean, they've talked about it on TV a couple of times. He's worn the GCW hoodie a few times on TV, so like he himself has acknowledged it in like his own way, but it's not like they call him Jon Moxley 2 belts or anything like that, right? Like, because he is like, we joke, like, obviously Twitter, because those of us who do watch and do know, I mean, we jokingly call him, you know, Mox 2 belts or like what or anything like that, because we do know about it. But I don't think it's not going to hurt Jon Moxley to lose to Nick Gage in GCW for the GCW title. Like, I don't think it, and it's Nick Gage, like that's what his thing is. Like, that's Nick Gage should beat Jon Moxley for the title.
Well,
like,
I mean, I think GCW, we all assumed he was going to. The fact that he has a belt on is not really. Unless Nick Gage is ready to hang him up.
Well, he is having he has had some injury issues this year. And that's like he didn't wrestle at the Charlotte show because he wasn't cleared yet. Like, he came out and he hyped the crowd up, and a couple times he came back at the end, sent us home happy, that type of thing. Like, I got to see I got the Nick Gage entrance that I wanted. Like, you know, when I went to GCW, there were a couple of things that I wanted to experience, and the Nick Gage entrance was one of them. And even though he wasn't wrestling, I still got it, which is really cool. And but he hasn't wrestled for a while because he's having some health issues, or some injury issues rather. So, you know, maybe I don't know if they're severe enough that he's considering retirement. I don't know if, I'm sure Brett's a smart guy. I'm sure he could come up with something creative, even if they do decide to have Mox hang on to the title a little bit longer. You know, I'm sure they've got something that they could do for Nick Gage and have a creative way to bring him back if needed. But I don't think Jon Moxley losing to Nick Gage in GCW is going to hurt anything.
I don't either. I think that it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think that, and unfortunately, because it's a business and there's the history of the business that people look at,
but AEW doesn't always abide by those rules anyway. They kind of just do their own thing. So I don't see why it's like, I just saw Shida has 2 titles. She won a title 2 nights ago. She has 2 different titles in 2 different Japanese companies right now.
Nice.
So, I mean, so they can, and people, I guess you could also make the argument, well, you know, wrestling AEW fans are smarter, but they may not even realize that she's in Japan with with 2 titles in 2 different companies right now. And that's why they didn't put the AEW women's title on her. And I didn't think they would, because she has been in Japan, but now she had just won the Regina de Wave title, but now she has won an Ice Ribbon. She's a tag team champion. So she is busy doing her own thing. So there are people who have titles in other companies, and I don't think it hurts anything, if anything, it just reinforces that those wrestlers are that good that other companies are putting titles on them. And so I think that's more of an art, I just don't think it's an argument, really. I think it's not, I don't see what the big deal is. I don't understand that. I don't understand the people being up in arms about it. It's just weird. But yeah, so
I think even Dave says it, and he falls victim to it at the same time, is that he says the wrestling that you saw in your time is the wrestling that you like, and the wrestling that you compare all the other wrestling to, and things like that. But you are influenced by sort of what you see that you like the best.
And I see that argument, but then you also have
you still have a lot of people, unfortunately, and he acknowledges it, but he still falls victim to it, is that they live they think of, and rightly so, Carney's gonna Carney, but also it is different because of the business aspect and the publicly traded aspect and things like that. And so there are going to be new rules.
Well, look at AEW and their interim titles. Like, I grew up watching WWE and WCW, and interim titles weren't really a thing. That's rarely happened. And look at how many interim titles we've had in AEW this year and things like that. So, like, you can, obviously there's, because they're doing the MMA style type of, like, because the MMA and UFC and things like that, like, they typically have interim champions when things happen, which works for them. But in a wrestling situation, we've seen that doesn't necessarily work very well. And we still, and now the only interim champion right now is Tony Storm. And I'm sure that will get taken care of at some point, where we'll kind of get out of the interim champions. And now they even had where they were focusing on the win-loss records, and then that kind of got in the way of the stories they were telling. And so now they're kind of backing off of the win-loss records. I saw something the other day that they're kind of, I don't know that I didn't read the article, so I'm not sure if they're phasing it out completely or if they're just kind of backing off of using the rankings so much, which is probably smart for it, because it was kind of handicapping them storyline wise with certain things. And then you can make the argument, because FTR have been like the number 1 tag team forever, but they're not getting the shots at the AEW world titles. And so, like, there's that argument there. And so they should kind of, I think the rankings, I think in the beginning it was probably smart, and they were kind of adhering to it more, but then the more people they were, obviously they didn't expect all these big names to be available, and then you bring them in, and you can't have Bryan Danielson start at the bottom. You can't have Adam Cole start like back, where he's like wrestling, building up his record on Dark every week. Like, they're not going to do that. So it kind of throws things out the window. They got creative sometimes, but then it just got kind of obvious that they were struggling that it was hindering them a lot. So I think that this is probably the right thing to do, to kind of, especially because now you've got MJF has the chip, but then Friday night on Rampage, you have a golden ticket battle royale to name a number 1 contender who's not getting a match until October the 18th, because they're giving it they're letting, because it's the Mox's hometown show, and so and so they've got Hangman. So then I'm bringing in Juice Robinson, which is why I'm wearing the flamboyant Juice Robinson shirt. I'm not Rock Hard, because I don't have a shirt that says that, because I don't think I want a shirt that says Rock Hard on it. But they're bringing in, which I'm fine with. Like, John Moxley and Juice are going to have a phenomenal match, and they don't really need a reason to have it. They're just, but I think it's that stipulation. It's that weird, like, if Juice wins, then he gets a shot at John Moxley's title or something like that, I think is what it is. So I don't even think he's getting, it's weird how that's a thing, that's a match they keep relying on as well. That if this person beats the champion, then they get a shot at the champion. And I'm like, well, why don't you just make that match right then and there? That's the title shot. What do I know? But yeah.
Armchair Booker.
Right. Well, and then I guess
well, I feel like the concept of the record thing, I think they were maybe maybe you can use the concept without having the rankings. I think that, like, you look at something like New Japan, where yes, they have rankings, but they don't have rankings. They have records. They have, and that does add to the storyline where it's like, Jay White's never beaten this person, or Okada keeps having this monkey on his back, or whatever the deal is. And that concept is great. And I think that they maybe initially thought we should really make it rankings.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I mean, because Tony is a baby booker. He's not someone who's come from this big background. I mean, I don't consider EFEDs you're part of your 10,000 hours of training in something. I mean, so I think that, like, that, I think you're right. And I think just kind of quietly doing away with that concept.
Yeah, or just changing the focus on it or whatever. I think maybe.
I mean, even like Jade's record thing is awesome.
Yeah, and see, they're building it.
That's a good one.
And they're working with it. And
but they're not like, I mean, I guess that would make her the number one contender. She's got the belt, whatever. But they're more focusing on the, like, she hasn't lost a match in 40 matches.
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing with Chris Statlander, because she had been the number one contender prior to her injury, and so from what I've heard, the plan was, like, she was gonna, because she had built herself up in the rankings, that she was gonna get the title shot versus Jade at Grand Slam, and she was gonna win at Grand Slam. But obviously she was injured and she's out for, like, 6 to 8 months, I think is what I heard. And so. But so in some ways the rankings work really well, because, like you said, they're doing really well with Jade. They have a clear path for her. They're hinting at, she's definitely going to get to 40, because obviously she's 37-0 now, or 38 now.
Yeah, there's no point.
And she has thrown out the 50-0 a couple of times. So they could do it. They don't necessarily have. And see, that was another thing with the rankings, especially with the women. They did it for Britt Baker to become the number one contender. They put her on Dark at Elevation, and she won like 6 or 7 matches straight, because they were trying to put her into the number one ranking to get the title shot. And then she did, and then she won the title. So, I mean, they do have ways around it, but I think it's more of a hindrance than anything at this point. And I think, especially with the way, and then obviously storylines change, and things happen. MJF left, the stuff with CM Punk happened. They made their choices there, and it probably threw off, because we talked about it before. Like, they laid out who their first 4 champions were going to be.
Yep.
They probably had their next 4, and then things went by the wayside a couple different times. Cody left. I mean, not that Cody was necessarily in the next set of 4 champions, but he left. That kind of threw off the TNT championship stuff that they were doing, and the TNT that got thrown off course. So, like, you can only plan for so much, and so you kind of have to work around these things. And so in that case, then sometimes it does, the rankings just kind of get in the way when you're trying to do these things.
Agreed. Yeah. So I have no problem with that either. When is Full Gear again?
It is on November.
On your birthday.
It's on my birthday, November 19th.
November 19th.
Mm-hmm. Which is why, when I thought that when we were making the argument that Mox could lose and go, he could take his 6-week vacation, that would put him, if he lost last week and he went on vacation, it's like basically starting this week, that would put him back the first week of November. So that would be about 3 weeks to tell a story, which obviously the story is there. It's MJF. So they could have started something. Well, even if MJF didn't cash in, like, that's been the story they're telling, is because the two of them are going back and forth. And so now MJF has Jon Moxley has won. So I don't know exactly what I'm not exactly sure what they're doing here. I mean, I could still see that happening, the two of them facing off at Full Gear. But then I don't know, like, I still think, I mean, they don't have to have the title on Danielson in January when they go to Washington. I just think it would be smart if they did. And technically, even though Hangman Page is supposed to wrestle Moxley in Moxley's hometown, there is the possibility that MJF cashes in before then, beats John Moxley, and then it's MJF versus Hangman Page in Mox's hometown. So there is the possibility. Is it going to happen? Probably not.
Whoa. But... Okay, you just blew my mind there a little bit. I can't. I can't even.
You're welcome. What? It's because I wrote an article about it I was writing about Rampage the other night, and I was like, oh yeah, so this could possibly happen. There's the possibility that MJF could win between now and then. And I think Tony tweeted about it or said something. He was like, if John Moxley is still the champion on October the 18th. So they are at least acknowledging that something could happen between now and then, and it's not like an absolute even though it pretty much is an absolute because it's in his home. And I didn't know this until I was working on the article. Will Washington from Grapsity said that Moxley and Hangman have actually never faced each other one-on-one before ever, which I did not realize. Yeah, I didn't realize that. They've actually only been in the ring together twice. And the first time was Moxley teamed up with Pac against Hangman and Kenny before they were champions. This was way back on the 3rd episode of Dynamite. So they weren't even champions when they tagged together then. And then when Hangman returned at the Casino Ladder match last year, Moxley was in that match. So those are the only 2 times they've ever shared a ring together. So this will be their first one-on-one match, which I didn't realize, which is crazy to think about. And then he also said that the rumor was last year at Full Gear, John Moxley was going to win the Eliminator match, and he would have been Hangman's first challenger. Obviously, John Moxley was dealing with his sobriety instead, and he left and was dealing with that. So we're technically getting the match that we would have gotten last year, except for the situations reverse. Obviously, Mox is the champion now, or Hangman would have been the champion at the time. So it sounds like this is a match so almost a year in the making, close enough, like 9 months in the making, I guess. Because at first, initially, when I love Hangman Page, but initially when he won, I wanted it to be Roosh just because it would be somebody different. It wouldn't be the same people in the title picture that we always see. And I just thought Roosh versus Mox would be a lot of fun because of just of their wrestling styles. But then, knowing that information, I was like, okay, I can see like this, especially now that I realize I've never faced each other before. I was this is still a first time match, which I think is really cool. And so that adds another layer to it. And then the fact that this match was supposed to happen last year adds another layer. And then there's the ultimate layer. They are going to be in John Moxley's hometown. Hangman's probably not going to get a lot of the babyface love that night. Mox is, he's like he's definitely the underdog coming into the situation. Maybe a little bit of the hill in the situation, and the fact that he's not going to get. The hometown crowd is definitely going to be behind John Moxley on this one. So I think I think it'll be a good match. And I think now having all this extra information makes it, and now I'm not so frustrated with him winning, because I was like, God, we've seen Hangman's been the champion before, and it makes sense now. And I think it also gives Hangman, making sure that Hangman doesn't feel like, with everything that's been happening behind the scenes, like that he's not being punished for anything, and they're still supportive of him and behind him and things like that. So I think that kind of is a nice thing to see as well.
Yeah, I was thinking because he's kind of, again, he's been off television pretty much. We haven't seen a whole lot of him unless you're watching BT and things like that. And but with before they suspended it, but I thought this was a good way to bring him back into the fray.
Right.
And I didn't realize you're right. It feels like it should have happened.
Yeah, definitely. That's why when I read that, I was like, wait, what? I was like,
okay. Really? So now I'm even more excited for the match.
Yeah, me too.
That actually makes it a really interesting
situation. Does. Yeah, and it's not just that, former champions getting a title shot again.
This is, and again, I don't think necessarily, maybe they will, but I don't think they will give it to Hangman, obviously. No. I think that I'm in the camp of now that Moxley has done this, I think he should probably have, because essentially what this is he shouldn't have had the belt off him in the first place, is what ultimately, I mean,
right.
It sucks that Phil decided that on the night that he won the belt that he was going to go be a big butthole, but it kind of also is like, well, they should have just kept the belt on him the whole time and we wouldn't be in this mess. And now it's like, although I have heard people, I got to say this, I've heard people say, you can't just keep putting the belt on Moxley when the house is burning down. Why not? Fair. They do it with Okada every freaking time because Okada is that over. And when things are going awry and things are bad and everything sucks,
but I think
you also put the belt on Okada because Okada.
Well, yeah, and that's a little bit. Guys. I think that's a little bit different because they're not on TV every week. Too, and I think, and I mean, actually, but because I mean, Okada's great; he's the greatest wrestler in the world. So that's not my argument. But on the other hand, and I don't have a problem with Moxley winning, but on the other hand, they do like you have Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, he's gonna get the belts.
Like you have when Hangman, when Adam Cole is healthy, like you have Adam Cole that could be a champion. So like I can see a little bit, but then I just with everything else, Mox has been the one, and this kind of goes into the, with, I guess, kind of with Jericho winning the ROH championship. Like, they're through all of this, they've been the locker room leaders. Mm-hmm. So is Bryan Danielson. So another argument for Danielson to have the title. But then you have Mox has been that way. Jericho apparently has really stepped up the last few weeks. So it kind of seems like maybe they were rewarding him a little bit for that. It does also make me, I think most people seem to think this, and I kind of think this too, that a TV deal or streaming deal for ROH must be on the way. And so they've put the title on.
Help sweeten the deal.
So they've put the title on Jericho because that's what they did. I mean, that's obviously why he was the very first AEW champion, is because they knew they're a new company. People know Jericho, people who haven't watched wrestling in 20 years or who gave up on wrestling. They know who Jericho is. Yep. They know what he brings. And so it was smart. I mean, I had arguments for both, and especially because I was a big Hangman Page fan, I wanted Hangman to be the first champion because also you're a brand new company. It makes sense to start with a brand new champion.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, like I get all the reasons why they hung the title on Jericho when they did. It makes sense. So it seems like maybe that's what they're doing with ROH. Because I was surprised. That was Claudio's 6th title defense, and he lost. And
it was his first world title, which is why I was a little.
Me too.
My initial reaction to the result was to be an angry monster. And,
I was I was mad.
I was
mad about it.
That was his first time, and he is ROH, and this is the worst idea ever. And then after I calmed down, I realized that Jericho is a giant star, and all the things that you just said, for all the reasons you just said, I was like, they have to. Because either there is a TV deal on the horizon, or you've sweetened the deal a lot.
Right.
Maybe that, like, we don't know where they are on that. And like maybe something has stalled because there's so much going on shifting with the TV rights and the streaming and whatever.
Sure.
But also I think it does make it feel like it's either
something's on the way, it feels like.
Like maybe. Okay, well,
maybe it is going to. Maybe they are going to Reels.
You know what? ROH to Reels is the greatest idea in the universe. I will always stump for that. I'm 100%.
Maybe that's why it's happening. It's because they were like, Reels needs Jericho.
That's right.
Also, the thing that kind of a little bit irritates me about that, because like the Jericho thing makes sense, but then what are you saying about Claudio? Like he was in WWE as Cesaro for years. I mean, it's not his fault they never put the title on him over there. And so I'm like, well, then what are you saying about Claudio if you don't think that he's somebody that can carry a TV brand? That bothers
and there's
me
no room for him in the AEW championship picture right now.
No, there's not.
We're sitting here having the conversation about should it be Mox? Should it be Danielson? Should it be MJF? Because MJF is going to get it, and Danielson is going to get it.
And then when when Adam Cole comes
Michael
back.
Cole. No,
not Michael Cole. And then again, but if they get away from the rankings, because when Adam Cole was injured, he was the number one. He was number one in the rankings. And so it seemed like he was kind of on the verge. They can. But so I mean, you do have him waiting in the wings eventually, whether it's a year from now or whatever. You still have so they unless they're going to send him over to ROH, which I guess they could do that too, and have him be the ROH champion, because he was ROH for a lot of people who watched ROH in the last 5 years or so. Like that's he and Kyle O'Reilly are two people that you and Dalton Castle, like those are the three people that you always associate with ROH. They all three were champions in ROH. So you could have them go over there. But yeah, it just that's the only thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, is like, what are you saying about Claudio if you don't think that he is the type of person who can be the face of your other brand? And that kind of bothers me a little bit. But I mean, I do get the Jericho argument, but I also get the argument of people who are tired of Jericho, and they've already done that. Like, we've already seen this.
They did this program.
Like we saw Jericho do this to anchor AEW. We've seen that already. Like, so I get that argument as well. Like I see the pros and cons of both things, but it sounds like the TV deal, or maybe the TV people are like, hey, if you're going to do this, then Jericho needs to be your champion.
We need to have something important added to it.
Right.
That is
right.
I mean, a household name in wrestling.
Right.
Well, you do kind of have to do that to start a TV show in a way too. I mean, it worked with Dynamite.
Yeah. Right, which is why exactly why
like
they
did
said. Right, they did what they did, and so it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that means we're getting some TV information soon, because ROH needs to be on TV. Like, I was watching Dalton Castle he was part of the Battle Royale on Friday, but he was on Dark this week, and he just. I mean, I've been a Dalton Castle fan since the moment I saw him, and he's so much fun, and he's somebody who should be on TV every week. And I'm hoping that and there's a lot of people who should be on TV every week. And I'm hoping, like, I was watching some of the tag stuff, and I was like, man, I'm ready for the Workhorsemen to be on TV like every week. So I'm like, I need this ROH.
TV.
I know. I was like, I need this ROH deal to come through, because I need some Workhorsemen. I need Dalton Castle. I don't need Jericho. I have plenty of him, but I'm gonna get him anyway, it sounds like. So,
for now, maybe. I mean, things are kind of weird right now with TV, so
yeah,
I think and again, they're coming up on their own deal, and they've just had this merger thing. And although in a wonderful, situation, like with as much of a dumpster fire as Discovery appears to be, AEW is like the one thing making money for Warner, and
because they've been
in that merger. So the one thing that they have in the black is their wrestling show. Maybe give it more time while you're fixing the. They've actually, I read I was reading The Observer this week, because I got in the weeds about the TV deals and stuff, and it actually is like. And then I picked up on a totally separate article that someone shared in our group. But it was talking about the fact that it sounds like they're sprucing it up for another sale even. So.
I mean, it could be.
And it would be. But see, this would be. And what's horribly, just scary is that we're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery with HBO or NBC Universal.
Oh, I did see that, and they were because there was
that article was. I mean, if you
because then they were talking about if WWE and AEW end up in the same broadcast family, and because there was the funny meme that was shared to our group about it was Michael Jordan, and I think is it Larry Bird that was in the picture, and they're hugging, and it. And it was like "F you bitch" or something like that, and
Triple H and Tony Khan.
That was really great.
That was fantastic.
They're like in 20. God, can you imagine if that's 2024 and they're battling? And then also MJF is having his great. Wait, what does he call it? The War of 2024, I think is what he's the booking War of 2024. I think is what he's calling it.
Yes,
and that's where because January 1st. He made sure to point out, because I watched the MMA Hour interview last week to write an article about it. And he said, he was like, January 1st, 2024. It's when it's going to start. and he was like, he's like,
it'll be a weird year. 23 is going to be a very weird year.
23 is going to be a really weird year, but 24 could be too, especially if there's, depending on where
just
MJF
all the stuff
goes.
that's going to lead up to all the stuff that happens in 24. Right? I mean, look at how much this year, I mean, obviously as you get older, things go by faster and you're busy and everything else.
Yeah.
But this year has actually been, that feeling to me has been exacerbated by how much crazy shit has happened in wrestling. I mean, Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not one of these people who's like, Vince McMahon's gone forever. That's silly. He still owns the majority share of the company. I mean, there's all these complications.
They're going to induct him into the Hall of Fame next year, it sounds like.
I mean, now you do have to be concerned about the idea that if there was collusion and antitrust violations there, that's a big deal. And you can get into a lot of trouble for that. Mm-hmm. So there's always that possibility, but he's not for the first time in. I mean, I think we even had Brian Solomon help us out with the 100 years, basically. Mm-hmm. A McMahon. I mean, Stephanie. I shouldn't say that because Stephanie is in charge of the company, and I shouldn't discount that because she's doing a job.
Yeah,
but
Vince hasn't been out of wrestling.
But to have a decades. Vince, but not a senior's gone, junior's gone. It's amazing. It's the idea. I never would have. I thought that guy would have to die. Basically,
I think we all did. Like, I think even he had come. Like, he just thought, "I'm gonna die in my office.
I'm gonna die in this office, or doing crunches at 2:00 in the morning because I can't sleep because I'm bipolar AF." But it's
So it definitely seemed like
I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't
There's probably some things there though. But so this thing. I mean, and you even think it all even started with Cody. Like, nobody expected Cody to leave AEW. Like, I will be one of the first to admit I thought it was a work in the beginning. Before, I thought it was a work because I thought it was for the show.
I really thought that. I thought all this stuff was for the show, the reality show.
Sorry, my microphone doesn't want to talk, but at least it's not buzzing like it was. I'm not getting the annoying feedback, but I'm
literally gonna make us a banner that every time that something goes on, it's just gonna say "Feud of the Year, vote for it."
There we go. Let's do that. But so like this weird year's been crazy because like I never thought Cody would leave. I didn't think the Vince stuff would happen. I didn't think MJF would leave for a little while. Definitely didn't see the CM Punk stuff happening. It just there's been a lot of things, and we're still only not even in October yet, so we still have a whole
October is still a little away.
We still have a little bit of a quarter of the year to go, so there's no telling what can happen.
Halloween's going to be extra spooky this year.
God, please no. Please no. Please be tame. I can't handle anymore. I've had to write so many damn articles
and my candy and just leave me alone.
Exactly. Let me just watch Hocus Pocus 58 times on Freeform, okay?
Nice. There. That's one. Favorite Halloween movie.
Love that movie. I cannot wait for Hocus Pocus 2 next week. I'm excited. I actually don't even have Disney Plus because I have so many other subscription things. So I will be subscribing to Disney Plus just so I can watch Hocus Pocus.
Well, I have Disney because I am a Marvel.
I need to. I probably should because my sister's all the time. She's like, we should just get this because it has all our favorite Disney movies on it. I was like, I know, but like we have Hulu that we barely watch, and now we have a trial. We've got a trial subscription to Paramount Plus because
the 7-day thing. I was going to do that too and try and
we did the 30-day thing because they had the code in the commercial. And so, but we might as well have just had a week because it took us forever to get, because we're like, oh, we have 30 days. So we waited like 2 weeks before we started it. But we got it for 2 reasons: to watch Beavis and Butthead do the universe and to watch Scream 5. And so we watched Beavis and Butthead do the universe a couple of nights ago, and it was so stupid, but it was hilarious and it was cracking us up. And then
a million years since I've seen that.
So they did that. So that's the new one. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe is the new movie that they just did.
Oh, they did another one?
Yeah, it's a new one based on, because
they
did a new one, and it's like they disappeared for 28 years and they explain like why and how that happened, and so it was really funny. Awesome. And then they actually have new episodes that come out apparently every Thursday. So we watched. We would have been caught up last night with the 9th one, but I fell asleep because it was like 2:00 in the morning.
May as well call it Nostalgia Plus.
Yeah. So then it is Nostalgia Plus, but apparently there's like 22 episodes this season. And I was like, so am I gonna have to extend it? I was like, no, I was planning on just using my trial and just being done with it, but I was like, oh, there's a bunch more episodes and we've got to watch. And Scream, I haven't seen. It's technically just Scream, not Scream 5, but I think most people refer to it as Scream 5. I still haven't gotten around to seeing it, and it's on Paramount Plus, so we're planning to watch that this week. Actually, I think we're going to watch it tomorrow.
So I got that, it would be to binge all the Star Trek content.
I'm sure there's a ton on there.
I know.
There's a lot on there.
What we would do, because I would check out things like Picard, I'd be into, and Discovery. So that's my jam.
Right. So we have, and I was like, we haven't really been keeping up with Hulu. We've got Netflix, and I was like, there's so many subscription things out there. But I was like, Disney is probably one that we should just get, because I know we would use it a lot more than the other things. But I was like, so definitely going to be watching it for Hocus Pocus too.
I'm stuck with Disney because
very excited about that.
Yeah. Mandalorian and all those Marvel shows. And but I don't know what I actually really like Trick or Treat. That movie is a lot of fun.
I don't think I've seen that.
I don't know what your kind of like, spooky movie, horror movie type of thing.
I am not really a horror. I like horror films. I don't really care for it, because I think it might give people ideas, and I'm going to be their victim. So I don't do horror films. Like for a while, Scream was like all I would watch because it wasn't that scary and I could deal with it. Then I started watching Halloween movies. I can deal with those. But I'm not super.
No Freddy for you or anything.
Yeah, probably not. I'm just not into.
Come on, it's Freddy Krueger.
I know. I can't do horror films. I don't like. I can deal, and it's weird because sometimes I can deal with like psychological thrillers and things like that. But horror movies have just never been my jam. It's just not my jam.
All right.
That
was our little spooky tangent for you. Getting ready for the Octobers.
Yes. There you go. You're welcome.
All right. Yes. So, and I did want to mention your article about Maria, because you did actually this week a wonderful article talking about why AEW should bring in Maria Kanellis-Bennett to do their women's division, and that it's a seek it out, folks. You got you see Powerbombshells here, but
I'll tweet it again
thing, and she can retweet it on our Twitter, which I wish she would do more often with some of the
I did retweet. I did retweet. I have been retweeting. I have retweeted a couple things, but I don't like do them. Like I'll just do it like the one time, and
I don't want to plug myself.
And I'll just I'll retweet it. Like even with it, because like I watched the MJF interview, so it had some really, like I was telling Mel, like within like the first maybe 15 minutes, I had my entire article because he covered so much stuff. And it was like, so basically he covered like why he left, why he was unhappy, which he was like, he said was not because of how he was positioned in the company. It was basically money. So it was never, he's like, it was never an argument. He's like, I have no problem with the way I've been positioned in the company. He was like, that was never it. But he was like, I looked across the board. I looked at what people in WWE were doing, what people in other companies were doing, and look at what I'm doing. And he shouted out Brandon Thurston. He was like, minute by minute, like I was bringing in ratings, and these people are making double and triple what I'm making, and they're not bringing in the ratings. Mm-hmm. He was like, and that was my argument. And he was like, and Tony didn't agree with me, so I left. So I mean,
all right.
And then he explained like why he came back, what he was doing during his time away from the company, which was apparently after he went on a 2-week vacation to Greece with his now fiance. He stayed in his house for 2 months, and he has a gym in his home, and he his MJF reason was he did want fans to see him unless they were paying. So but yeah, so he gave a lot of information. It was a really good interview. Another thing that was really interesting was he put over Brody King as somebody who should be a star, which I thought that was really cool because, and we talked about, Mel and I talked about this before we got on the show about how MJF is really good at seeing talent because he is the one who suggested Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, and now they are AEW Tag Team Champions. So I think he definitely, and he suggested a couple other people. I can't remember off the top of my head who they were, but Tony signed them, or Tony at least brought them in and like let them do their thing, and then they ended up getting signed after that. So definitely seems like he has an eye for talent. But yes,
seems like he is a wrestling we talked about. He's a student of wrestling. Mm-hmm. He understands the business. He understands the work. He understands he's no dummy.
He's not.
And frankly, I mean, if you're any athlete, I mean, that a lot of what he's saying is fair.
Yeah,
and he has really good arguments. The only person who's going to defend you or advocate for you in any situation is going to be you. And the fact that that shows a lot of. This guy could be in wrestling forever. Like he could be a booker sometime if he wanted to.
Yeah, he really could. He has that. You can tell that he is very passionate about wrestling. Like people think, I mean, he is obviously MJF is that's his number one. Like that's what he looks out for, and that's why he's doing but in order to look out for himself, he's looking at what other people are doing. Like he was talking about, he's like, I watch other companies. I watch current wrestling. I mean, he did shit on New Japan, but I think that's probably because it's going to lead to something later on. But then he talked about he watches stuff from the 80s. Like he watches AIW. I mean, he watches he was just talking about, I watch all these things. Like he's like, I'm a student of the game. He's like, I am a prodigy. He was like, but I do watch all of these things. But it's smart because he's picking up on to his credit, he looked at what people in WWE were being paid and was like, I'm doing this. I'm bringing in all these ratings for you. I'm minute by minute, I'm doing these things and you're not paying me like that. And so, he's very smart in what he's doing. So I definitely cannot fault him for that at all. And he came back and he said, he was like, people think I'm leaning towards a certain way. And he's like, I'm not. He was like, I'm leaning to whoever will pay me the most money. He was like, a new figurehead could come along and start a new promotion. And if they offer me the most money, I'll go. He was like, I want to make sure, he's like, I'm not just doing this for my kids. I'm doing it for future generations to make sure that they have money. And he was like, if I could have it my way, nobody in my family would ever work again. I would make enough money wrestling that they would be set for generations to come. He was like, so it sounds like
not a bad plan.
Yeah. So it sounds like
make it work.
Yeah. So he definitely has plans in place. Whether he'll get there is another thing, but he definitely is extremely ambitious. So he's smart at what he's doing and we've talked about how wrestlers should leverage other companies. I mean, Randy Orton did it. He found out how much money AEW offered, went to Vince McMahon and said, this is what we're offering. And Vince said, okay, and offered him more than that. And he signed another long-term deal. He had no intentions of ever leaving this company, but he knew exactly what he was doing. And that's the smart, especially in wrestling. There's only so many companies on TV that you can wrestle for. Yes, there's streaming and it's a lot more accessible than it's ever been. But to be on TV, there's right now in America, there's 2 options, sometimes 3, depending on your market.
Wherever you count Impact in that, because it does have
good,
it has good weeks here and there.
Yeah, we're depending on what your market
WWE
is. Right, and they're not going to pay what and now we see Bobby Fish's because it kind of blew up in his face a little bit. So who knows but he didn't sign a contract. He made that very clear.
Well,
can't fire him because he doesn't have a contract.
Good for him.
It's like, you do you, Bobby Fish. And you did. So now you're dealing with what you're doing. But yeah, anyway, so the point was I did retweet the MJF article that went on to a whole other thing. But yeah, so the Maria, and it was funny, I was already planning to do the Maria because I was approached by my editor because he saw me, because he's seen my tweets about the podcast and knows that I talk about it. often about hiring Maria. And he said, hey, do you want to write about it? And I said, sure. And then we found out about the Grapsody interview that they did last week. And Maria pointed out a lot of my arguments for bringing her in are her reasons for wanting to be in creative. And she had some really good quotes about she wants to help in with the backstage stuff, as far as getting to know, basically character development is what she's really interested in. And she made the point, she's like, I am not the best wrestler, but I'm really good at helping people figure out who they are and getting that across on TV. And she was like, and that's because she was in Women's Wrestle Army. She's like, what we do is we help people in and outside of the ring. We want to help them with backstage segments. We want to help them develop their character. She was like, I want to get to know them, who they are as people, and then figure out who their character is, how they want to come across on TV, and then we figure it out from there. Because she's like, right now we're in a really controlled environment, so we can make certain things happen that you can't. And then she's like, and then you take that character and you go somewhere else. She was like, we want to be a revolving door. We want women to get more opportunities, because she's like, I never wanted to be a promoter, but I've always fought for women to have more opportunities. So that's what I'm doing. And she was like, we want women to develop their characters, develop their in-ring work, develop all of these things, and then go somewhere else and make a lot of money. And she was and she did say in her interview that she has talked to Tony Khan. She has talked to Triple H. She has talked to Scott D'Amore. She just talked to women, to Women of Wrestling as well. So Maria,
wow.
If AEW they need to hurry up, because her contract with Impact is up on October the 8th. She said she gets paid per appearance. And so she said it's kind of hard because she's trying to do her stuff with Honor No More. And Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, I believe both of their contracts are up at the same time as hers. I don't think it's not like they're a package deal. I don't think that's what she was getting at. But her point is, it's kind of hard to make all these plans for Honor No More, because she does have these plans. But then if she doesn't stay with them, then, she can't do what she can't enact, I guess, her vision for them. And so she's definitely... because she said that she thought ROH was going to be her job for the next 10 to 15 years. She thought she was going to be overhauling the women's division. She was going to be running it. She was going to be producing. She was going to be taking on more and more, all these things. And she was like, and then it was just gone. And I have to figure out what I'm going to do now. And so I think if AEW is serious about their women's division, then they have to hire her, because otherwise they do not feel like a priority. They feel like they're just there because almost like they're meeting a quota. They have to be there. And then we saw the promo that Marina Shafir cut on Dark. And that is the perfect example of why they need somebody like Maria, because bless Marina's heart. She did probably her best. And the promo was all over the place. It didn't make sense. It didn't connect very well. Her emotions were kind of all over the place. She was kicking the bottom of the bottom turnbuckle because she was angry. And it kind of came out of nowhere, because they have never let Marina talk at all. So this was the first time that they did this with her, because that's why they put her with Vicky, because obviously that's what Vicky does. Even though I will make the argument that Nyla does not need her, because Nyla is phenomenal on the microphone. Fine. She's so good. She does not need Vicky.
She doesn't need Vicky.
She does not need Vicky, and she's never needed her.
Let's put Vicky with people that actually, if we're gonna have to have Vicky around, let's put her with people that need her.
Exactly. Well, and the whole thing was Nyla's whole thing was, I want to be the two-time AEW Women's Champion. Well, that's 2 years ago, and that still hasn't happened. So why are you still with her? But so poor Marina. I mean, it was a good thing that they let her cut it on Dark. That was the appropriate place for her to practice.
Not hanging her out on TV.
But, because she would have been eaten alive on TV.
Terrible.
But that. And as you've seen, you probably saw the clip from, if you're on our Subscribe to the Fight Game Media YouTube channel, you have probably, if you're not subscribed to the Patreon, you've probably seen the clip that was on YouTube where they talked about it on the Dynamite show this week. And it's gotten a lot of traction there, and rightfully so. Poor Marina. It was terrible. It was just, I felt bad for her because she has some of the pieces. She just needs to put them together. And I think somebody like Maria, and I know that they can, because people are like, oh, well, that's the whole thing about AEW is they don't have people write their scripts for them. They don't have to, she doesn't have to write the script. She can just give her direction. Because even Cody has said, like, when I was in AEW, I would workshop my promo. Like, I would do it, and then I'd play it for a few people and be like, and get their feedback. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And
but he is like conscientious enough to know that he has the experience. If you're someone with less experience, you're not going to even know something like that.
Yeah, and you see, like, Marina, when she was in WWE, she was rarely on TV. She was mostly in NXT and she didn't have. I don't remember her ever having a microphone, or if she did, it was very few times. So they clearly she didn't have that experience. And I know that there's the PC, and they, obviously, before Dusty Rhodes passed away, like, that was one of his things that he obviously, because he's like one of the best promos ever, and so he was given people, he was helping people with their promos and things. But AEW doesn't really, I mean, I think Dustin Rhodes is there, and I think he does kind of help guide them to an extent. But even Swole said in her, when she left, she was like, some people are just not comfortable with promos. Like, they just need help. Like, you don't have to write it out verbatim for them, but just work with them and help guide them so that they know what to do. And I think that's Marina's promo is the perfect example of that. Like, she needed help, and I'm not saying she didn't get any help. Maybe they did, and it just obviously, I mean, because look at Britt Baker. Britt was terrible at promos.
Oh, she was the worst.
She was awful at promos in the beginning. Awful. Like, especially if you go back to that Whataburger promo that she cut in Texas, and where she was body shaming people, and it was just it was so bad. But now she's one of the best promos they've got. They really worked with her, so they could. And I'm not saying Marina is going to be Britt Baker level promo, but they can work with her to make her sound coherent, to make her character be believable, because she, as the problem, like with her not saying anything, that was kind of her character. She was the strong silent type who didn't, she was in the ring, and that's how she got across like who she was. But then you have that promo, and that kind of sets her back. And so having somebody like Maria who can help guide them, find out who their character is, what are you trying to convey to the people, what do you want them to know about you, and then you and then you work together on that promo, and you do it every week. She was like, because she was saying that even Roxy, who is now Roxanne Perez in WWE, when Roxy was in Women of Honor and she ended up being the winner of the tournament there, she said that Maria said, she was like, write my promo for me. And she was like, no. No, I know other people, because other people had written promos for her before. And she was like, no, I'm going to get to know you first. Then we're going to be like, what are you trying to say? What is your vibe? What do you want people to know about you? What is your character? Okay, then we are going to work together on this promo. And I think that makes so much sense. And especially when the AEW's women's division is so mostly directionless outside of a few things, like, they need characters who have direction, even if they're not being put on TV. Because like, we even see, like, seems like they're doing something with Penelope Ford, like they are pushing her. They've got something going with her. We don't really know what it is yet, because she's only been back on TV for a few weeks. But like, having somebody like Maria can keep her can make the character work, whatever it is that they're doing with her, like, that can keep her on track. They have a clear vision for her. And those things, like, because it seems like they don't even have a clear vision for Toni Storm, and she's their champion. Like, they don't seem to know what they're doing. They keep putting her in match, and then they tease the stuff with Jamie and Britt, and then Jamie realigns with Britt on Wednesday, and that makes no sense. If the storyline is not working the way they thought, like, they've kind of missed their window on the turn. I hope they're not going to make this go all the way to Full Gear. I don't know what they're doing, and it seems like they don't know what they're doing. And now we have, I mean, there is Saraya here now. So we don't know. So that was really cool. Like, she was.
Wait. She tweeted Saraya. It's Saraya.
I'm sorry, Saraya. Yes, I did mean to correct that, because actually I was thinking about that before the show, because Nikki told me, and I was like, make sure you say Saraya. And
Saraya.
I've been saying Saraya. I've been saying it like out, like talking to her. I've been saying it, and so but it was
hilarious. Last night,
Saraya,
Bob
Saraya
said,
is correct.
Bob said Saraya, and I was like, it's Saraya actually, and I said, I'm only telling you that because she actually tweeted it.
I'm glad she did, because I wasn't sure, because Excalibur was pronouncing it 2 different ways, and Britt pronounced it the correct way. She pronounced it.
Well, that's
she did
the way
And so, but I always thought it was Saraya. And so now I'm having to break myself of that habit of call her Saraya, because it is the correct way. And I want to make sure that I pronounce it properly and that we are educating you, our viewers / listeners.
Unless you have no idea who we're talking about. And that would be the former page. If we need that.
Yes. The former page is now in AEW. We don't know yet why she's here. There have been rumors that she is not cleared, but Saraya has tweeted not to believe the dirt sheets. So I don't know what that means.
She looked dressed to wrestle. I mean, I hate to say it, but
so yeah, it's really, and so it's
very tricky.
If she is not cleared to wrestle, then I'm not sure. Maybe they're bringing because obviously she was managing on the last time we saw her on TV in WWE, she was managing, and she was so maybe she will be a babyface manager, because it seems like, because she was with Athena and Toni Storm, so it seems like she's aligned herself with them. So I don't know exactly what they're doing with her. And so some people have wondered, they're like, oh, well, because they brought her in, they're not going to bring Maria in. And I'm like, I don't think they hired Saraya to be a creative. Like, I don't think that's why she's there. I think she's a TV person. I mean, like,
she's a wrestling person. Like, she's someone that you can like put her out there and do stuff, and then women can look to her and go, oh, like that? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And she's a phenomenal get. Like, that was Toni.
She wants it. I mean, she just,
right. Well, and even like, I saw a clip of Thunder Rosa on Busted Open the day after, and she was like, that's a huge deal that we have her. Like, even though she hasn't wrestled in, I think it was like the 8 years. She hasn't been on TV. I want to say it was, I can't remember the exact years, but it's been a few years. So, but she is still somebody. She was like, Paige has a brand, or I'm sorry. Well, she did as her, obviously she's Saraya now, but Paige was her own brand. She really accomplished a lot. And she's just turned 30 years old, and she's accomplished a lot in the wrestling business, which is insane when you think about it.
When you think about how much experience she has, I didn't realize she was only 30. Jeez.
Yeah, and then she comes from, basically
the whole background,
British wrestling royalty. Like, her family is a big deal in the indie wrestling scene in England, and she comes from that. Then she obviously, she skyrocketed in NXT. She was huge there, and then she brought that to TV. I mean, she beat AJ Lee like for the Divas Championship. Like, I think it was her first night on the main roster rather. And like, she's done so much. And then even when she couldn't wrestle, she was still an advocate for women's wrestling. And she was she was on TV. She's doing all of these things. And so she has a ton of experience, which I think that the women's division needs. So I'm cautiously optimistic with her. Cause this was kind of supposed to when they brought in Ruby was supposed to be a bigger deal than she is. Toni, prior to winning the title, Toni was supposed to have been a bigger deal than she initially has been somewhat. And so I'm hoping that Saraya will be, something that pushes the women's division forward. I think it's kind of hard to mess her up, but
let's hope so.
Yeah. So I don't. And so I think so. Can you imagine having her and Maria in the women's division? Like, not even as Maria not in the ring, because Maria has pretty much said like her in-ring stuff is done. Like, she's focusing on the other stuff, but having a woman like her on TV and then having Maria behind the scenes, like, I think.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, I'm like, but that's perfect, because you don't need her to be in the ring. You need her to be in the classroom, as it were, teaching everybody how to do those things and doing what you're saying that she does, that you've talked about forever, and rightly so. That's exactly what they need, is someone who isn't wrestling in there in the back doing the ladies stuff, like talking to new girls and getting them
right.
Just exactly all the things that you just covered there. That is perfect.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so I think the
Saraya
combination
can do the stuff out on the TV, and you can see what it looks like when it's
Yeah.
actually actualized. And Maria can be in the back, and that's a really solid team for their women's division.
And then you still have Madison Rayne, who I saw she agented the match, or she produced the match for Jade and Diamante at Rampage. And I heard the match came out of order from where it aired, where they put their match was done first, and then they moved it for TV. So I don't know if the original match was 2.5 minutes, because that's what it was on TV. But I do think, I guess, that they're going back to the kind of Jade demolishes everybody type of thing, and Diamante is somebody who's not on TV. Diamante is not somebody who's
to 40. So
right, and Diamante is not somebody who's been on TV and things like that. And that's not to take anything away from Diamante, because she's fantastic and she should be on TV. But Madison Rayne got a lot out of them in 2.5 minutes. Again, whether that's how long they actually got, if it went longer and it got edited out, that's one thing. But from what we saw on TV, like, Madison did a really good job. That was a really solid match for 2.5 minutes. So they even have Madison. So if you think about those three together, like what they can do coaching and character development and how they should act, how they should present themselves on TV, and like they have all of those aspects covered. And so it's like they're on the brink of what they could be, because we're heading into year 4 soon. The women's division has always been their biggest flaw, I guess you could say. That's been the thing that they've always had an issue with, and it seems like they have moving parts. They're just not cohesive yet, and we still don't know what All Elite Women is. Hopefully not a reality show. We don't need that. Please no. But please. So we don't have. So maybe there is. I still have hope that we will have an all women's wrestling hour. I don't know if we will get that anytime soon. But they have the part. So even if they don't, and yes, they do need. They still obviously they need more than one match a week on Dynamite and one match a week on Rampage, especially when their Rampage matches have lately been under 5 minutes. So there's that, and it's not. And even they've made the point that he could bring Maria in and then not like the way she does stuff and then take everything away from her. But if they want to make the women feel like a priority, then they have to do the things behind the scenes to make them feel like a priority. They have to bring in these women I cannot. If Maria goes to WWE, that's just going to screw AEW's women's division so much, because she's going to do all the things. Because WWE, I haven't been keeping up with Raw every week. And I know they've still had some issues like with Liv, how she's being presented and things like that. Damage Control seems to be the best thing that they're doing. But obviously, you've got Bayley right there. So and you've got Dakota and you've got Io. So they're doing that's hard to mess them up, even though they kind of did a little bit by not having them win the titles right away. But I digress.
But it's WWE, so
right, and they have a lot of things. But Maria, she was in WWE. She knows that system. She knows how they do things. Paul Heyman is there, and she said when she was in OVW, she would go in early to watch Paul Heyman and to see what he was doing.
Smart.
She watched what he was doing, why he did storylines this way, why he wrote this thing. What was his goal? What are we eventually getting? So she was like, I am not as good as Paul Heyman, but I have seen him. I have sat under his learning tree.
Nice.
It's so she knows. So she could easily go to WWE and go work with Paul Heyman. And then she could do everything for the women's division that she should be doing for AEW. She might do it for them. She could stay in Impact and help the Knockouts division become even better than they already are. She could go to WoW and focus. So she has options, which good for her. But AEW is stupid if they don't sign her. If they don't hire her, they are dumb, and they make me feel like if they pass on her, then that just gives into the argument that they don't care about women's wrestling. if you care about women's wrestling the way that you say you do, then you would hire the very best to make your division the very best.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Hey, go read the article. I'll
tweet it again. I'll tweet it again a couple times.
So really, I mean, Sam's argument is it's almost as undeniable as the fact that they need to hire this kid. She needs to be on their staff.
Yeah. Maria helped my argument because she basically said all of the things I was saying, and then she was like, and then she wants it too. So I was like, me and Maria have the same vision apparently for what she can do in this company. So it's like, see, I was like, Maria's making my argument for me.
What else do you need?
I was like, thank you, Maria.
I apologize for the weird background noises that are happening if they're coming through.
I don't hear it. So
excellent. I just wanted to make sure.
I saw you looking around. I was like, hopefully.
The neighbors are doing the lawn and whatever.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It is what it is.
It happens.
Can't build that soundproof studio.
Not
someday.
Yet. I was like, not yet. Maybe later episodes. Maybe episode 100.
So we're gonna get a little somber on you guys here, and I would, as someone who struggles with mental health, just give a little bit of a content warning out here for you guys, as we're going to talk about Eddie Kingston and the Great Fowler a little bit, and especially with the Eddie Kingston stuff, there's a lot of mental health related things there. Yeah. So if there's something that you just don't feel comfortable with, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Roll on forward. We'll do a little wrap up, and but we do want to make mention of these things because they are kind of important and they do go together. And the one thing is, Sam shared it with our group in our Slack group, but the video was
that thing in every single Slack group I'm in. I was like,
well, and I'm glad you did, and it took me until the last couple of days to watch it.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling people too. It's like Eddie's video was like 8.5 minutes long. So I was like, give yourself like 10 minutes because you're going to need, after you watch it, you're going to need probably a couple minutes to kind of process what you saw and what you heard, especially if you are familiar with it, not familiar, but if you have dealt with, not even if yourself has had these ideations, but if you know somebody who has or things like that, like then you kind of need to give yourself, and especially when it's somebody like Eddie. Eddie is somebody you feel like you know.
Yes.
And he feels like a friend. He feels like somebody you know personally. And so you realize like all the things that he's telling you and all the things that he goes through. So you almost have to process it as like Eddie is a friend and he is telling you these things that he has dealt with. And so if you haven't seen it yet, highly recommend it. And then also just give yourself some time to kind of process what was said.
No, it's a very powerful video. Glad that I was sitting with myself when I watched it. It was something that was very personal to me because I've dealt with all of the things that he talked about. I mean, just about either in my own personal, mental health struggles or with family members and I mean, it's in our family, man. Just like he said, that one hit me right in the feels because it is. And they did pass it down. And that is something that I think is a really important message about mental health and breaking the cycle. And
right.
I've done shows in the past where we spoke very openly about mental health. And I think that it's important. And I'm glad we're finally in a place because, I mean, I've been in that game for half my life where I finally was old enough to take matters into my own hands. And I think it's important that people realize, and we're in a great place the stigma still exists. But we're in a great place, way further along than we were 20 years ago, even.
Right.
In terms of being able to talk openly about it.
And even that's one of the things that Eddie said in the video. He's like, every generation thinks they're progressive or more progressive than the last. And he was like, so my generation, we think we're more progressive, but this new generation, like they think they're more progressive and they know ways to handle it. And so which he even talks about. And you're right, though, even if this generation is more progressive than the last, it's the last 20 years have become something where you and I can have this conversation right now,
right,
on a podcast about wrestling. that we're having a conversation
about a wrestler, about
like,
a tough guy.
Yeah, and you know, and so if you're not familiar, I guess we should make sure if you're not familiar with what we're talking about. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. AEW has done a couple of ads for that. One has aired on TV during Rampage and Dynamite, and then they have broken down and they've put Eddie Kingston, they put his entire story on social media. I happened to catch Aubrey's on Instagram because I was looking to see if they had the clip of the one that they showed on TV. So Aubrey's full story, hers is shorter, it's like 2 minutes or so, but she put her stories on there. I have not seen Powerhouse Hobbs' individual story posted yet. I don't know if they haven't posted it, but that one that aired on TV, it has Eddie Kingston, Aubrey Edwards, and Powerhouse Hobbs. And then they have their individual ones, and they're sharing their stories about not only mental health, but also, it is about suicide, because that's what this prevention is for. And Eddie talked very candidly about how he was at a place where he almost ended his life. Aubrey talks about how her father ended his life, and they have very similar. He had been on medications and he stopped taking them. And then once he stopped taking them, he lost his life. And so she was talking about how like that's made her make sure that like she keeps up with what works for her, which is taking medication, working out, eating correctly, like all these things to take care of herself. And so that's what she talks about. And they were both, I don't have, like I said, I haven't seen Powerhouse's full story yet, and I'm sure he'll talk about it, but like they've both talked about how they're on medication and like how there's nothing wrong with taking medication. If you need it, then take it. Like if you need to speak to somebody, then do it. If you need to go to a therapist, like if you need these things, then to do them. And so I think it's really, it was very powerful. It made me cry.
It made me cry.
Watching Eddie. I have a family member who has been struggling with suicidal ideation and some mental health issues. They've struggled with them on and off the last couple of years. We had an issue. The same situation came up a few months ago, and we as a family have been dealing with it because for a long time my family didn't know that this person had attempted to take their life 2 other times. They kept it between them, between the husband and wife and the child. They kept it between them, and so none of us knew until 2 years ago when they were almost successful. And my cousin was like, we need to talk about it, and that's how my family found out. And that happens a lot, because there is still we have progressed a lot in 20 years. There's also a huge stigma, and to the point where like I did not so this was a huge shock to us when this family member attempted to take their life, because we had no idea that they had done it 2 other times, years before, but none of us even knew about it. And so it's been a lot that we've been dealing with as a family. And then the situation happened again a few months ago, and we're all still kind of trying to deal with it. And and Eddie talks about how it's a ripple effect when someone takes their life, and it is. And then that's the same case for someone when it's an attempted, even if it's an attempted attempt to take someone's life, is a ripple effect on other people and things like that. So I think it's, what Eddie said definitely hit home. And even if you don't know, even if you think you don't know anybody who has been in the situation, you probably have. You
probably do.
You just don't.
1 in 4 adults.
Yeah, so you probably, even if you think this doesn't apply to you, it probably does, and you just.
I like that they made that point. Think of you and your 3 best friends. One of you is struggling right now, and right. I have 3 best friends, and I know they're struggling, and they know I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. And what's again the openness, the talking about it, but it is hard. It is hard for caregivers of people with mental illness. It is hard for the actual person with mental illness. Of
course.
It is. And I think the medicine thing, this has been a really big part of it. And I think that one of the stigmas on the medication portion of it is almost bigger than the stigma of the mental health itself sometimes.
It can be, for sure.
You made this, you said it as part of what you were saying there, is that being on the medication or they take their life, you're essentially saying that just like a diabetes medication or a cancer medication or any other treatment for any other disease or disorder, is that if I don't take my medicine, it could mean my life.
Right.
That's pretty serious. And your brain's kind of a really important part of your...
It is literal life and death in a lot of situations. Like,
we used to say that because everyone has a brain and because everyone has feelings, everyone has mental health.
Yep.
That the health of your brain includes your emotional and, it's not just about... And obviously, for me, I also, eating right and keeping, making sure I'm doing habitual things that keep me on a routine. And but it's, people don't know where to start, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
But literally every single person has a brain, which means every single person needs to keep their brain up.
Yeah.
And that's not just educating your brain. That's making sure that the feelings that we all have every day, whatever they might be. I loved when he said, get rid of normal. There's no such thing as normal. What's normal for me and you, and what's normal, air quotes, is not... It's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Right. Well, and even Eddie said, he was like, it's not normal to go get beat up every week for your job. It's normal for me, but for most people, that's not a normal thing.
I love that. Yeah. You made perfect...
The one caveat I will add to that, no, there is no normal, but let's please normalize talking about these things. Normalize talking about mental health. Normalize talking about suicide. Normalize talking about the stigma. Normalize feelings. Normalize, especially men. Being able to be open.
It's the second, suicide is actually the second highest killer of men in the country today, right now.
Yeah, and it's not just in the U.S. This is a top killer of men all over the world. Because of the way our patriarchal society is set up and has been set up for a very long time. And like Eddie said, you can call me soft, but I would rather be soft and alive with my friends and my family than be in the ground. Basically. And I don't think there's a better way to put it. Call me soft, but at least I'm still here.
I don't care. I'm here walking around. I get to see my mom, my friends. I get to, things have been really tough the last few years, especially with not being able to get out of your house. If that's something that, but I think and the reason that I wanted to kind of bring Jay's story into the Eddie conversation is that Jay, if you're not familiar with Jay's story, Jay is on Twitter at The Great Fowler, and he is one of the most positive influences on wrestling Twitter that you can find these days. And if you are someone that frequents wrestling Twitter, you may or may not have seen Jay, but Jay is one of the people that if you think nobody cares, he's like the guy that will actually tweet you back. And if you read his story, Jay has not had it easy. He has AFib. He's basically lives day by day in the most like realist of senses.
Yeah.
And yet somehow manages to be a positive voice in that thing. And I mean, even he talked about how he struggled with mental illness prior to understanding what his disease is. And so that's why he talked a great deal about like, that's why I want to be one of the people that's there when people do. I mean, if somebody does reach out on Twitter, if you're lucky enough, then be like, I care about you. Because Eddie made that point of there's always one person out there that will care.
He said that's all you need. You just need one person.
And I feel like Jay, for a lot of people, whether you realize it or not, if you watch his behavior, he's one of those people. He's a stranger. And he's still out there like being like, but I love you. And I just thought it fit so nicely together with both of them stories that, and if you're not, again, familiar, recently they did a story on Jay. It's titled The Good Guys. I will include the link on here at some point. I didn't actually throw it in here because it's way too long. And
it is a long link. Yeah.
It's a bit of a read, but it's a valuable read, and it speaks directly to what Eddie's talking about, because there's a guy who could just give in to the demons, as it were, and instead he'll talk to you. He will talk to you if you want somebody to talk to. Here's a guy, and I mean, some of that comes from the fact that the wrestling community has given him such a gift of being there for him, that he looks at it as his responsibility to be there for other people. Yeah. And I felt like that was Eddie's message too, was I love you and I don't even know you. And I think that that's what's really important, is that we do live in an age where the internet is a toxic dumpster fire a lot. But also I've personally answered strangers. I encourage other people to seek, what do you like? Go find this thing. And in this community, you're going to find a lot of people that are going to be helpful. I think that people are not as far apart as they think they are.
No. And, that also makes me think, because I shared the Eddie video the other day, and somebody who was a follower of mine through Braves Twitter, I don't even think they're a wrestling fan, but he watched it and he told me, he said, thank you for sharing that, because he said, I'm okay now, but a few weeks ago I wasn't. He said, I was in a really dark place, and he was like, because he lost his mother recently, and he was like, sometimes, not having her here makes me think, why am I still here? Then, like, what's the point? And he thanked me again for sharing it. So I told him, I said, bookmark that video. And I was like, and when you get in that place, go watch that. And remember, there's always one person. Remember that people want you here. And yeah, it might be really dark right now, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is hope, and people want you here. And so I was like, and he told me, he said, I will bookmark it so that I can watch it. And so it, so I made sure, like, I went and shared it on my Facebook page, and was like, because I rarely even use my Facebook. It's mostly to post my articles and to keep up with family members. So I was like, I don't care if you don't watch wrestling, please watch this. I shared it on my Instagram. I keep forgetting I'm going to send it to my dad. So it's just like, it's an important message. And then it goes back to, like we said, the wrestling Twitter can be awful, and it can be toxic, and it can be really terrible. But then sometimes it's really wonderful, and it's really great. And we need these voices, and we need people like Jay, and we need people like Eddie and stuff like that, sharing these messages. And because, like you said, we're not really that far apart. There's a lot of things that divide us, but we're a lot more alike than we realize. And I think we lose sight of that, especially when you get into certain things, like especially in politics and things like, and religion even, and things like that. You can see, and sure, there are valid reasons for some of the division in certain things, but at the end of the day, we, like you said, we all have brains, we all have mental health, we all have emotions, and we all deal with a lot of similar things. And it's kind of like, unfortunately, it's kind of like cancer, wherein cancer is, if you have not had it yourself, or have not had a family member, then somebody who has had it. Then that's kind of the thing with mental health and things like that. Even if you yourself are not struggling with your mental health, then there's somebody is struggling, and you just may not know it, or you are friends with someone who has had suicidal ideation before, and things like that. So you just don't. There's a lot, because even like my sister and I were talking to our friend in our friend group a while back when this happened with our family member. And we told them, like, a lot of times we do stick to wrestling, but we do because we've been friends for so long. we are friends outside of wrestling, and we do talk about real life things and things that we're dealing with. And so we realized that we hadn't told them, like, it wasn't on purpose. We just realized that we didn't tell them what happened when it happened the first time. So we were telling them, and one of them were like, that just goes to show you never know what people are dealing with, even your own friends. Like, sometimes you have no idea that, because he was like, I had no idea that you guys were dealing with that in your family. And he was like, so sometimes so it's easy to not know. Like, I'm sure you're like, oh, well, that's my friend, I would know. And not necessarily.
I beg to differ. I very much do. And is that a lot of times you don't want to talk about your problems to people because you don't want to bother them with your problems, and you don't want to burden them, and you don't
and that's your brain telling you not to do these things. That's your brain telling you, and even Eddie talks about it in that video. Like, that is your brain telling you, justifying all of these things. I mean, to his point, he was saying that, you know, your brain justifies why you shouldn't be here anymore, but your brain also your brain is telling you, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to tell people. I don't want to talk about it. I mean, sometimes it's hard because especially if you're in it and you're living it every single day, like the last thing you want to do sometimes is to talk to someone about it. But that's also your brain making you feel like you can't tell people and that you are a burden and that nobody cares when that's not the case. And so sometimes you just have to tell your brain to shut up and just, you know, deal with that.
Shape up brain. We need to go find somebody. And they fortunately have merged the national helpline to sort of include everything. They still have the suicide prevention hotline, I believe, but there's a national helpline that gets you to where you need to go for where you are in your mental health moment, whether that's, and I just, from my personal experience and understanding how this works, is like, you're going to call a therapist or a counselor or somebody, and it's going to take a while to get in. Because a lot of people are struggling and finally admitting that they're struggling. And so we have a mental health professional shortage, and
we do.
They work incredibly hard. I am grateful to every single one of mine. I don't know how they do it. Not all heroes wear capes. What an amazing community of people. I know I have friends that are therapists as well, and I've seen the work that they've done, and it's remarkable. You know, one of my closer friends out in Seattle was Mrs. Washington, and that actually is all supported by suicide prevention, and it's all about, the entire pageant is essentially about your contributions to the mental health community. And she's a wonderful person, and even therapists struggle with their mental health, and there's therapists who specialize in treating therapists for mental health, because it's hard to be a human.
It is. And we just lived through, and we're still living through, a pandemic, and that's affecting people.
And a lot of uncertainty in a lot of places. Prices of things are high. What's our economy? I mean, it's okay. Like, just hang in there when you're trying to get set up is my biggest thing that I want to impart to people, because that starts to reinforce one of the things that you would do when you, I can see you in 3 months, and you're like, how am I supposed to deal with this for 3 months?
Right.
Hang in there and find those other avenues that, you know, the one person that's out there. And there are a lot. And
there's, I know that there's, can't remember off the top of my head which website it is, because I looked at it looked at it a few months ago there. And if we find the links, we can tweet it out too, just so you have something there. But there is, the website has some information on what to do if you know someone who has, who has had suicidal ideation, like, so how you know how to talk to them, because just because you care about that person doesn't mean that you are equipped to deal with what they are dealing with.
That is such a great point.
So obviously we want you to talk to somebody, but that is a lot, you know, that's a lot for them too. Like, they didn't go to school. They don't have these tools either. And so there is a website that has an option that gives you some, tools to deal with, like, if you are that one person that they come to, like, kind of how to help them, and like what questions to ask them, what things to say, what things not to say, because that's definitely a huge thing too, is you can say the wrong thing and not mean to, but it could set them off, or, you know, push them further, or things like that. And clearly, obviously, even if that's not your intention. So that it helps with language, and it helps, and it gives you some kind of resources on, like, you can only do so much, but then you can kind of lead them in this direction. Or like you said, if there is a 3-month wait, then maybe, okay, well, what do we do for these 3 months? How do we get you to that? How do we get you from here to that appointment in 3 months? Like, what can we do? So there are resources out there for you to help if someone comes to you and then you don't know what to do beyond, I care about you, please don't harm yourself.
Right.
There's a step beyond that. Or when you get to that point where you're like, okay, this person is hurting, how do I help them? I don't have the capacity. And especially sometimes you're dealing with your own things and you don't know how, like, you're barely hanging on yourself. Like, you've got to, it can be a lot. And so there's resources out there for you too. And like I said, I can't remember off the top of my head what that website is because I looked into it a few months ago, but I will look into it again and we'll post the link on Twitter. That way, if you're looking for that resource, that you can find it. But there's definitely stuff out there for you too.
And that's at Powerbombshells for those of you who are listening by audio. Just everything is at Powerbombshells.
It is.
We own it. It's ours.
We do.
But I think, and I'm really, personally, it was touching.
It was.
And I'm glad. And I needed it.
Yeah. And it makes me happy to see that this is something that AEW cares about. It's not something that is just it doesn't seem like it's just a like talk for them. It seems like it's something they mean. And apparently Amanda Huber is the one who made this happen. This is Amanda Huber is the late Brody Lee's wife, and she apparently is the one who talked to them about sharing their stories, and she made it happen, and they trusted her with that. And she said that the day that the ad that it aired, she said she'd had a really bad day herself, and she said seeing that just made her immensely happy, and it made her cry. And she was glad that they trusted her with that, because that is, you do have to have a lot of trust to share that something so personal with millions of people around the world. And now we've seen people who are not wrestling fans who are responding to it, who have seen it and things like that. So it's a lot to share that story, and I'm very glad that Amanda even thought of that. But then got it that she even came up with the idea, however it came about, and then she got it in place and it happened. And to have a national spotlight on something like that is a really big deal, and I'm glad to see that happened. And so I hope that AEW will continue in their partnership with this, and not just in September, but all year round. I hope that they do more. So it was really nice to see a really big company taking the time to talk about something like that, because it is very important. It is something that a lot of us deal with day in and day out in some form or another.
Yeah. And I can't say it better than that. It's just fantastic. Now, as we were coming on the air, I think that you, being the wonderful journalist that you are, got some breaking news.
Did get some breaking news, and we were going to share this at the beginning, and then MJF in his gray suit
totally derailed it. That's okay. It doesn't matter.
He took us to do another direction. He took us a completely different direction. We were going all of these ways, but so we will get to this breaking news real quick. That should have come in the first of the hour, and by the time this is airing, you may have heard about this breaking news. So, it appears that Buddy Matthews is currently done with AEW, at least for a little while. It's not clear exactly how long he's going to be gone. If you did watch Rampage on Friday night, you would see that he got hit with the Muda Mist, and that was on purpose because they were using that to write him off of TV. He has apparently asked for some time off, kind of in the situation that Malachi as well has asked off. He did say that someone was at they were at Fight Life Pro Wrestling, which is an indie company, and Buddy told the audience, unfortunately tonight I'm going to be the bearer of some unfortunate news. As everyone knows, the House of Black has had some issues lately. As all the members of the house, I speak beyond the wall. We want to thank you for being members of the house. Unfortunately, I, like some of the other members, need to go away for a while. I need to recalibrate. I need to figure out some things. As my brother Malachi once said, this isn't goodbye. This is see you later. And it says that apparently Buddy has been wanting to leave for quite some time. Some of it, so we're not completely sure if it is a mental health situation. That sounds like it may be part of it. It sounds like there may be some other contributing factors that we're not aware of, or that he just has not shared yet. Like Malachi last week, he said some information that got out about him, and it was personal information that was not anybody else's to share. So Buddy's exact reasoning has not come out yet, but it does sound like I don't know that it's hard to say if it's because he's going back to WWE, or if he's taking some, because he said he needs some time to recalibrate. But from what's being reported, House of Black is effectively done. I don't know what that means for Brody and Julia. As far as I know, Brody has not asked for his release. Obviously that could change within the next few days. I do know that they seem to be really high on Brody. Even MJF in his interview last week said that he thinks that Brody King is a star, and he thinks that he should be pushed. And I know that seems to be a common theme for a lot of people with Brody, that think that he's a star. And Julia has done phenomenal with her new character direction. I hope, if they both stay in the company, I hope they find a way to keep them together. I think they would be fantastic together, and she's really seeming to own this new character. Even though my sister pointed out that she nearly took her own exit Friday night when she almost completely missed the table and hit her head. That poor spot. Bless her heart. That was scary. She
a little bit
we about lost Julia there too.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's the information that we know right now. We don't know exactly what is going on with Buddy. I'm sure he will tell people when he is ready, just like Malachi did. Regardless of the situation, we of course wish him the best. We hope that he is happy mentally, emotionally, professionally, everything that he needs. I hope he gets whatever it is that he needs. I would love to see him back in AEW if that's what's in the cards for him. Maybe it's going back to WWE. I know that, obviously it's not a secret that Rhea Ripley is his girlfriend. So I'm sure that might play into it a little bit too. And maybe with Triple H there, Triple H was, big on the 205 stuff. So maybe, Buddy will get what he never got in WWE wherever he goes. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He's a great talent. He's a lot more. I think he's very underrated. I think we did see some of what he can do in AEW, but I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. And so wherever he goes, I just hope that he is happy and he gets to showcase how good he really is.
Completely agree with that. His strong matches, I think when you say he's underrated, I think when you look at some of those matches that he's had on Strong, where it was just like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Absolutely underrated.
Yeah. And I
really liked watching him work in New Japan.
Me too.
I really felt like they are probably the ones who got the best out of him.
Yeah. Because for a long time, I was a really big 205 fan. Like that was
me too.
When I wrote for Fansided, that's what I covered. I was watching it anyway because that's just my wheelhouse. Is I love cruiserweights. I love that type. I love that style of wrestling.
Same.
It helped because Cedric Alexander was there. I watched Cedric and Charlotte.
Love
and Cedric was and I'm a huge Mustafa Ali fan. And Buddy had some of and I have said this before. If Cedric and Mustafa are the heart and soul of 205, then Arya Daivari and Buddy Matthews were the backbone.
Yeah.
Because they had some incredible matches that people just were not seeing because 205 did not get the love. That is
really didn't. I was at a SmackDown, and of course they were taping it during the SmackDowns a few years ago, and we made sure we were committed to staying for 205 Live because it was one of our favorite shows.
Yeah, exactly.
On the network.
Nikki and I were in the nosebleeds one of the last times we were there, and we were yelling for Cedric from way up high. And somebody was like, "You think they can hear?" I was like, "Well, first of all, the stadium is pretty empty because a lot of you losers went home and don't give 205 no attention. You don't give them any love." So I'm sure Cedric can hear. Somebody is yelling his name. But yeah, that is definitely a hill I will die on. 205 Live for a while they had the most consistent storylines. They had the best wrestling. They had the best feuds. They did a lot, and Buddy Matthews was a huge part of that when he was there. And so again, I wish nothing but the best for him, and I hope he gets recalibrated and decides that he wants to come back to the ring because he's very good. And I hope wherever he ends up, he's just happy. The same thing with Malachi too.
And I think it's important that, I mean, the company not just is putting out information like this, but they're allowing their wrestlers the time that they need, whether it was Moxley or these situations with Malachi and Buddy. And
right.
I love that they have Amanda Huber is, grief will be part of her life for the rest of ever. And to see her channeling that into something this positive and beautiful is really, really encouraging.
It is.
I think it helps with everything we've been talking about here is that it's like, you see all these people are actually putting this time in. So they must mean something.
Yeah.
And I mean, and who cares? Like, I love that they are at least sort of like distancing, like they are separating themselves as a company by just allowing the people that, like, yeah, we want you to be physically healthy, but we don't want to go through what we've been through in the past, the dark side of the ring, as it were, where we've just watched people get taken out by wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole life.
Yeah.
And I love that this company and that so many people and so much supportive stuff this week and just individual human beings out there doing these things. And I definitely, I'd love to see him back.
Yeah.
But on his terms.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Definitely.
Right on. Well, we've kept everyone here a little longer than we've been trying to, but that's okay because this stuff at the end here was really important.
Yeah, it was. And if you had to skip that, we completely understand.
Totally.
That's perfectly fine. That's why Mel wanted to give that kind of a warning, just in case if that's not something you can listen to today or ever. We wanted you to know that it was okay to just leave. You didn't have to subject yourself to something you weren't ready for. So. We appreciate that. And if you did stay along, thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for spending your time with us this week. Like we said, we went a little bit longer than expected, but we had some important things to talk about. And then the Buddy stuff happened literally 10 minutes before we
were coming on. And Sam's like, I'm at breaking news again.
Yeah. And so shout out to Mike Gilbert for getting me the information so that I had it.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, before we went on air. And so just make sure, like we've said before, make sure you're subscribed to the Fight Game Media YouTube channel so that you don't miss a show. And if you can, support our Patreon. It is $5 a month. There's a lot of really good content for all different types of wrestling. So if you watch it, we probably cover it.
Yeah, Fight Game Media covers it. Boxing, MMA.
There's all kinds of stuff there.
You name it. Indies. Love those John LaRocca indies. Underground there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. So if you can afford it, then we highly recommend it. And if not, the YouTube channel is there, and there's a lot of really good content.
And that is that's the free way to support us.
Yes,
that helps us do the content that we do. So if you can subscribe and maybe tell a friend to subscribe.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. And then, of course, now, like we said at the beginning of the show, we do have an audio option now for you. If that's easier for you, we do have that up on Podbean. We don't have the little...
I'll link it next time.
We don't have the little thing. We keep forgetting about it, but we do. I do post the links on Twitter. I do post them to our Instagram stories since I can actually post direct links there. So you can see that. And then, of course, follow us on Powerbombshells because we stay pretty active over there, let you know what's happening. And again, we will have in the coming weeks, we will have information about the upcoming live stream that we'll be doing. Which
that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, really excited about that. I can't wait until we can share that information with you. But until then, we will be back next week with episode 32, and we appreciate your time and we hope that you have a very good week.
Thanks. See you later.